in the morning. So I can just echo what we heard from Singapore and our sister company or sister partner from Singapore. Today we're going to discuss about maximizing human value, and I wanted to give you both a little bit about what the Ranhai Silicon Valley Center is going to do, but also why human value first. So the Silicon Valley Center is the youngest of the centers. We actually just started up more or less a week ago. So what I'm going to present is more of the plan for the future. But I have, as you heard from our chairman today, been studying this phenomena of management for the internet age or the Internet of Things for a decade. And I presented and have been publishing 7 books in total. The one that might be of most interest for you today is the management for the digital age. Will China surpass Silicon Valley? And it's quite interesting to just give you some history behind that book. So I, as you can maybe hear, I'm not an American. I came from Europe. And I was drawn to Silicon Valley to describe the new management generation, the new company generation that was more or less born over here. So I went over and I described the Google model. I went out in the world and described how Google will revolutionize the world. Then I realized that Google was not the only one. So I wrote the second book, The Silicon Valley Model, which is 6 different case companies of Facebook and Google and Twitter and LinkedIn and Tesla and other companies. Then I thought I was going to be done. But at that point in time, I realized that something very, very exciting is happening over in China. And I met Hire for the first time. So that generated the third book, which was then this management for the digital age. Will China surpass Silicon Valley? And I remember the reaction in Silicon Valley at the time when I wrote on this book. So what I found in my research over the years is more or less the same pattern. We see a total new generation of companies, and their management models is more or less a 180-degree different from anything we know from the old corporations, and specifically the one that I usually do research on, that are representing the older traditional model. And so the one component that is coming out is the focus on people value. And you can ask yourself, why human-centric? Why is it so important for all those companies in this new generation, for the internet era, to be human-centric or maximize the people value? And one obvious thing is that we know that there is a strong correlation between people management and business performance. And it shouldn't be a surprise at all, but still, as we heard from our sister partner in Singapore, it's not happening. And 37% of employees don't feel that they even maybe contribute or have any meaningful job, which is pretty remarkable and awful. The thing is, what makes this even more harder to understand is that we have known the correlation between people management and maximizing people value with the company performance since 1924. We can go back to the Hawthorne studies in the US, where we knew and we learned, surprisingly, that it was the better relation between managers and workers that led to increased productivity, not the light or lightning situation in the plants and manufacturing plants. And later on, we see tons of research saying exactly the same thing, that employee treatment and employees' perception of being valued and cared for leads to higher performance. The thing is that this is an interesting fact in an isolated situation or isolated context. But if you bring on a digitalization, automatization, robots, and machines that will work together with human being. We're coming back to what our chairman said in the very start on this day, that we also need now to use human beings for what they actually are strong on or strong at. And we are going to work in collaboration with machines. So this is not just important to find how we can get a better productivity or result from the company anymore. It's also how to use human being in relation to machines. So it's a more complicated situation than maybe what was just for 15, 20 years ago. To increase the complexity and what we have been teaching for a while now, for a decade almost, is that there are three main things that any organization need to make sure that they have today. Three main principles, key principle for the new design. One is the human-centric, or the maximizing the people value. And we're going to discuss that more today in this session, in the Q&A and in the discussion. But the other factors are an organization that is heavily more dynamic, agile, dynamic, fast-moving, and also more organically structured than whatever have been before. We heard about the tall bureaucratic organizations, and those are not scalable. They will not survive. And we know that. It's enough research showing that, scientific research. We also know that there's a third principle, and it's to be open. Before we had the vertical integration of businesses, we talked about that yesterday. Now it's all about ecosystem. It's all about co-evolution, co-creation, co-locating, all these new buzzwords, open innovation and ecosystem, living in parallel, more or less saying the same thing. Innovation is going outside. Productivity is going outside. Companies have to be having semi-transparent borders. So if company can move and transform from being what they are today, a traditional company that is more or less an isolated, vertical integrated company that doesn't really use more than maybe 10% of the people within the company, to a company that can maximize the value of the people in the organization, be organically fast, agile, and also make sure that they can bring value from the whole ecosystem. You can just imagine the power of those large corporations that can do that. And that is the only way also to be comparable, innovative to startups, and which is something that large corporations try to be, and they try desperately to learn from startup and the startup culture, which is very hard in the old traditional setting. So what the Silicon Valley Center will focus on is to build on the knowledge we already have, which is scientifically based, and also, of course, based on a lot of consultancy reports and other practitioners' work. We're going to do research specifically scientifically based, and we're going to offer webinars. We're going to also create new curriculum modules for the new business leaders of the world, so we can bring the latest of management to colleges and universities. And we are, of course, going to do seminars, workshops, online programs for business leaders of today. And it will be focused on getting people, business leaders today and for tomorrow, to understand the new context and the new principles, number one, and then the new practices. As we heard from Gary Hamel yesterday, we are usually focusing on practices immediately, which I think is a huge error and mistake. If you don't get the understanding of the new context and you have a true belief in the executive team of what new principles have to be there, no transformation will happen of the companies. And I do think that Silicon Valley can be an incredible place to create this new cradle of management innovation, where we now will add all the knowledge from Hire and the Renan Hui model to the knowledge we have already. We also, of course, going to study other examples as well. And as I said, in China, tremendously interesting things is going on. The Renan Hui model is mind-blowing, at the least. And we are going to be able to offer new knowledge that is coming from and inspiring from this model within a 6-month period of time. So that was everything from the Silicon Valley Center for now. And as I said, we are the newest center, so it will be interesting to listen and share more later on with you, and hope to get also your contacts if you want to learn more.
Great, thanks, Annika. I have to ask you, do you think, I mean, it's the title of your book, do you think that China will surpass Silicon Valley? Just to put you on the spot.
You know, I got that question from very many journalists, and specifically
have a good
after that
answer.
book. I would definitely say that, I mean, living in Silicon Valley is very dangerous to answer that question. As you can understand, it's politically not okay to answer that question. I can just say that there are pretty clear indicators that say that Silicon Valley should, watch their back, definitely.
Okay, thank you. We'll leave it there. We'll maybe pick it up again a bit later in the discussion.